All righty. Before we get into the television wrestling from the week, there was a big happening, a big personnel change, not on the talent roster of on-camera talent, but AEW has landed a new producer, and it is Pat Buck, the man who just produced the two main events at WrestleMania and pulled the old "I need more time with my family." Well, I'm not saying he pulled that. He's going to get more time with his family. They're not going to be running him around the world. But Pat Buck now has defected and gone to the other side. Again, this is the kind of people that Tony should have been going after to set his promotion up before he went after any but the key talent. The key guys that, the Jericho for the name and the Bucks and Twinkle Toes for their rabid following and whoever. He should have set up an infrastructure first because he was obviously going to have to deal with a lot of green talent. I had no idea of the level of greenness that he would be dealing with, but veteran producers, trainers, people who have years of knowledge and experience in putting together a show of this magnitude on national cable television is what he really should have gone after first. At least he's getting them now. But again, this goes to show there's two camps of these guys. And Brian, I was talking to you before we went on the air. There's the group of talent and probably, office people in all companies, not just AEW, but everywhere, that are all the indie-rific entertainment guys. Let's, do everything we can, all we can. It's cool and people chant for us and wrestling's evolved. And then there's the people, even the younger guys, but who have been trained and introduced and broken in and brought to the business the right way and by experienced people who know how to do it right and would try to do that adapted to the modern environment, but they get pushed aside in a lot of cases or not listened to as much because the, hey, let's have fun and do everything we want crowd is so much more fun to hang out with. It's like in school. Do you want to have fun or do you want to learn anything? There's camps of guys that can teach you things, and there's camps of guys that can let you have fun. Which one do you want to spend your professional career with? But what do you think? And I mean, I didn't mean to make mockery of him because he sent out a picture of him holding one of his children and said, "Daddy's coming home." But he did do a Costanza. He bowed out at the right time. The main events at WrestleMania, need to spend more time with my family. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience. 3 weeks later, here we go.
I think there's a lot of people that have been unhappy in WWE, and if they see an easy exit ramp, they're going to take it. And he obviously had an easy exit ramp. He was able to show up in AEW the next week, right? Go right to work, start working right away. I think he's a really good hire. From everything I've ever heard from anyone who has worked with him or been around him, seems like a solid guy to have backstage as a producer.
Well, and see, also the thing is, I was going to bring up, and this is not even self-serving, but there's an OVW connection here. Pat Buck spent a long time at OVW. Unfortunately, it was right after I had left, but he was there for several years. And when he moved back home to New York, he opened the school that he's opened, patterned after, and he told me this himself. I mean, it's not like I'm putting words in his mouth. When I saw him several years ago at an event, he patterned it after not only the facility, the customized warehouse and training center, and you can tape and you can do this and that, but also the training program and the style of the type of things. Obviously, everybody has their own methods and unique style of teaching people to do stuff, but the concept, the idea, it was OVW. And that school that he established there, well, guess who spent a lot of time there when he was breaking into business? MJF. Potentially why maybe he understands at this young age wrestling and how to be a star and how to get over. I mentioned on what's the last program we did 2.5 days?
The Drive-Thru, my show.
Your show. Yeah. And you're welcome to it. I mentioned just some things that Mike Mondo had been tweeting. Mondo's worked with Buck quite a bit. Mondo's from New York also. Mondo came to OVW to a seminar when he was 19 years old, and we saw his innate talent and personality and invited him. And those are the days of OVW when we had seminars that you had to pay to attend. And then at the end of it, we would evaluate you and decide whether we would invite you to come and pay to join our program. You couldn't just pay us and we'd take you. We had to invite you because we felt in some respect that you had a legitimate shot at being a pro wrestler in some fashion. Maybe not necessarily the WWF champion, but you could do it. And if we saw that the odds were long on, because of your age or your conditioning or your size or your something intangible that you just ain't going to get it, we wouldn't take your money and yank your pud, right? But Mondo, at 19, excelled in that program, obviously went to the WWF and got one of the world's worst gimmicks of all time, and it killed his in-ring career pretty much, but he trained in the developmental program. He trained many of the modern day top stars or helped train them. He worked with the biggest names in the business around the world. I've mentioned before he motion captured the video games for the WWF because he could do everybody's shit better than they could. But I'm not, as I said, I wasn't going to make this about self-aggrandizement because the OVW program I'm talking about was Danny Davis's and Rip Rogers. Obviously, I was booking the shows and the television, but the training and the concepts and the basic wrestling 101 was Rip Rogers through Danny Davis and through Rip Rogers. By the time most of these guys got here, Danny had stepped out of the ring as far as physically hands-on training. But it was the same concept because the same concepts of logic and common sense and physical endurance, good and evil, etc., never change. People just try to change them. It doesn't work. So, and there's a Johnny Jeter who also got in the St. Valentine's Day Massacre of, bad gimmicks with Mondo and the Spirit Squad. He's opened up a training program in California to try to, these guys are still only 40 years old. It's just that they were run out of the business at an early age and the mainstream because of their ridiculous gimmicks. They're trying to teach some of the younger guys so that we don't see the paralysis and the spinal surgeries and the fucking body casts and halos and all this shit. And also, in some cases, with a lot of these guys, they could teach the promoters and the bookers or the alleged matchmakers or the creative teams of various companies, what the fuck are you doing? Why do you put your talent in unwinnable positions because you think that something you've dreamed up would be a cool match that they can't perform or it would be detrimental for them to do so? Things of that nature. So I wanted to I'll run a couple of them by you. Let's see what we come up with. This is not groundbreaking stuff, but it's amazing that apparently now there are wrestling schools that these are not some of the first things you learn. These are tweets from the Mike Mondo. I'd tweet Jeter, but I don't know whether he's on Twitter or not. If Jeter, if you are, tweet me. I owe you a phone call, but owe everybody else a phone call too. Mike Mondo tweets, a hot tag is the buildup of intensity and drama in a tag match. A tag is hot when the crowd is at its highest point after many failed attempts by the babyface to succeed and make the tag. Huh. Well, who could have ever thought something as this? How about this one? Brian, how revolutionary is this? You can wrestle, then fight, but you can't fight, then go back to wrestling. It doesn't make sense and is not logical. Be aware when crossing that line. How many times do you see guys jumpstart something, fucking bash each other around ringside, and then throw each other back in the ring and start doing drop-down arm drag. It's fucking foolish. How about this one? When a comedian tells a joke and the people laugh, he or she pauses and waits for the people to stop before telling the next joke. Wrestling's the same. If I get a reaction from a move, I'm going to pause and get the most out of it. Don't step on your own shit by doing move after move. This business is based on emotion. If you can make people feel happy, sad, angry, frustrated, excited, etc., you're doing your job right. Real life feelings everyone's experienced at some point. They can relate, understand, and identify to that. Emotion is what sells tickets. I like this one. There's no such thing as a rest hold. A rest hold would be just grabbing a rear chin lock and just sitting there. No emotion, no facial expressions. When did rest hold become a term that the smart fans started using?
It was a newsletter term, correct? It wasn't a wrestling business term.
No, that's what I'm saying. Because I remember, I don't know if Uncle Dave was the first. I remember seeing it in the Observer, but the newsletters of the early smart fans in the 80s coined that phrase, right? And now the guys use it. And as Mondo says, there is no such thing as that. There's tweets about develop a good relationship with the commentators and cameramen. They can make or break you. Communicate with them. Allow them to help tell your story and get you over. One about fundamentals. What about the more over a babyface is, the less you have to do to him in the heat. Slow down, listen to the people, let your babyface sell, and grab more holds. Which, again, is true. You have to do nothing to Steve Austin, poke him in the eye, and down he goes, and the people are on your ass. If it's some fucking schlub they've never seen before, you can cut his head with a chainsaw. It doesn't matter. Here's one I like. The reason why it was a big deal the first time someone kicked out of Undertaker's tombstone is because he always beat people with it. Get your finish over first before having someone kick out or counter it. Establish the move. Do you see guys now just going for their finish that they may have successfully performed on television maybe once, maybe twice, and letting people just reverse it and get out of it and do their own to them in return?
We see that all the time, and that was one of the benefits to the format of wrestling for years is you got to see these matches with star wrestlers against preliminary wrestlers. You got to see the finishing move over and over and over again to the point where if anyone ever actually did kick out of it, it really meant something.
Yes. And that's why in a house show, I used to jokingly say only if it was over $100,000, but I think we slipped some in that was over 80 if they were hot crowds. But Ricky Morton would kick out of the rocket launcher right before he got the hot tag and Hoot made the comeback. But only on the big show and after nobody else on TV had ever kicked out of it. Following up on the rest hold, when grabbing a hold, don't just sit there catching your breath with a blank stare on your face. Grab the hold with intent and actually work the hold. Body language, facial expressions. Make me believe what you're doing is legit. Not enough heels today. Manipulate and cheat behind the referee's back. If the ref sees you cheat, you're just putting heat on the referee and not yourself. Keep the referee credible. Some of these would have to have an asterisk, not applicable in AEW.
Right, I was going to say, you also need a referee that's credible.
Yeah. Your match doesn't begin and end when the bell rings. It begins when you come through the curtain and ends when you go back through the curtain. Always be working. Attention to detail. If I punch a guy, I might register my own hand because I hit him so hard. The two most important matches on the card, the first match and the last match. First match sets the tone, gets people up and excited, babyface over. Last match drew the money. It's the last impression people are going to go home remembering. Leave them wanting to come back. Being able to call a match in the ring. Here's one. When you're bumping and feeding for a comeback, heels don't just run into the guy to take move X, Y, and Z. Draw back and look like you're coming with something, but the babyface beats you to the punch. Every comeback is a guy just running straight into a motherfucker's fist. And I like now how some guys throw a punch with their right hand where you just kick your feet out underneath their arm and the guy doesn't even need to be in front of you. You just run to the side and he sticks his fist in your face. Fuck. Anyway, there's all kinds of things here about body language in a big arena or stadium working the last row. Don't do a double down, as they call them now, but a double knockout in a 6 to 8 minute match. There's no reason you shouldn't be that exhausted. I never understood when somebody would tell me they're a tweener. You're either a heel or a babyface. Please don't confuse me if I'm watching your match. It's amazing that you can now learn more on Twitter from some guys than you can from actually watching the current wrestling pro or going to some of the wrestling schools, apparently.
I think that's one of the things is that, when you talk about fundamentals, it's not just headlocks and wrist locks. It's also the fundamentals of the logic of wrestling. And some of these guys, whoever trains them, or if they just decide they're going to ignore whatever good advice they were ever given, go in a completely different direction.
Well, and it goes back to it. I'm talking about Rip Rogers now, but it's not like he had a unique style of his era, possibly because he lasted longer than some of the other trainers and came to the modern era where people were just mortified that he would say, "Oh, you're fucking rotten, you fucking douchebag, you fucking idiot, fucking do it over." Everybody loved Rip, except the goddamn corporates with the suits that, "Oh my God, somebody's going to sue us because he's so profane." He taught Pat McAfee in a barn how to wrestle better than the current AEW world champion, because at least McAfee's a star, has a personality, and can get over. That's how you learn. That's what you did. You taught guys how to think, not how to fucking imitate a trained chimpanzee and do the fucking move. It educated their minds on what they were doing and how to think about it. And then they could figure the rest of the shit out after you teach them how to bump and be safe. But it's more mental, and nobody is doing that because they're so wrapped up on, I've got a guy that looks like a dinosaur that can do a backflip. Fucking hell. It's education is what it is.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say he looks like a dinosaur. He dresses like a dinosaur.
Yes, he does. He looks and dresses. Actually, when you see him without his mask, he looks like a dinosaur too. But I'm telling you, Brian, it's education. People have to have education. They got to have some learning for the particular profession that they want to be in. And if you want to be a wrestler, you got to learn not only how to wrestle, but how to think about wrestling. And if you want to be one of those professional bots out there that harasses companies like AEW, I understand this is a big market for it these days, you've got to learn how to write all the codes, right?
I wouldn't suggest this for, as you put it, all the bots out there. This is a completely different thing.
No, because now a bot is a highly paid job. We've heard this from Tony Khan himself, because he said that the bots are out after AEW, and who could possibly go to an expense like that? That must be an incredible expense to get all these people to build all these bots to tweet bad things about all these wrestling promotions. And the people that are learning how to write all this code that builds all these bots, that does all these things, are the graduates of Codecademy. Codecademy, folks, can help you reach your coding goals, whether you're looking to take down a wrestling promotion or potentially just conquer the world. Because after all, we now know that everybody that knows how to run these computers is going to be in charge of things after the cataclysm. Over 50 million people already know that Codecademy is the best way to learn to code, but jump in now because some of those people are going to have to be eliminated. We've smartened up too many people to our business. So there's always going to be new spots in this environment, in this particular endeavor, because after some people get too smart and outlive their usefulness, they have to be moved on out to the farm. Folks, you can learn at your own pace.
That's not how this works at all. And there's none of that. No one has to worry about being moved out to the farm, as Jim just put it.
Disappeared. Wait,
no one has to worry about that. Because at Codecademy, no.
Well, here's the thing. If the people that write the code, everything's in the computers now. Your whole life, your social security number, your address, your all of your information, they could just go in there and erase you from the computer. And then when people that knew you were looking around, other people went, no, he doesn't exist. You must be imagining this. See, you could actually disappear people if you take the right course at Codecademy, because you can choose what to learn.
No, you can't.
You can choose building basic websites, artificial intelligence, and here it says everything else you could want. If I want to make all traces of a motherfucker disappear, that he's never lived on this planet, that's a thing I could want, and they will teach it to you.
No, they won't. They do not teach that. They do not teach anything like that, and they don't encourage that.
I'm not saying that
whoever this motherfucker may be, however he disappears, has nothing to do with Codecademy.
No, I'm not saying they're actually going to teach you how to go and throw him in the trunk of your car. You got to learn that on your own. But you can sure erase any evidence that he existed with one of the courses at Codecademy that teaches you coding languages like Python and HTML and Squall and JavaScript and more. And if you're not sure where to begin or who to start with, Codecademy will point you in the right direction. They may suggest somebody, hey, you might want to work on him first. Anyway, you can take Codecademy's programming personality quiz to get tailored career advice and course recommendations based on your strengths and interests. For example, if you're a highly technical, highly organized, and highly demanding person, you might want to be one of the people that are running one of the continents after the Great Takeover. Get instant feedback. Your code is tested as soon as you submit it. If nothing blows up, they'll call you back and let you continue. An interactive platform helps you learn by doing. That's the way I've learned everything from the time I was a kid. Thankfully, I was born a boy or I'd had nothing to play with. You can build your own portfolio and get a certificate of completion to make yourself more marketable to future employers or possibly future sponsors that may want to take the place of this one when I finish burning this down. Folks, you can land your dream job in web development, programming, computer science, data science, and tons more of those sciences. Or become a marine biologist. Join the over 50 million people learning to code with Codecademy and see where coding can take you. Get 15% off your Codecademy Pro membership when you go to Codecademy.com and use promo code EXPERIENCE. That's promo code EXPERIENCE at Codecademy.com, 15% off. The best way to learn to code, CODECADEMY.com, promo code EXPERIENCE. The best way to learn to code or the best way to learn to spell is Codecademy. All right, we should start talking about the wrestling, but before we do that, I just want to say we're almost there, Brian. The big landmark, milestone, millstone around our neck, whatever it may be. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel is less than 10,000 subscribers away from 300,000.
That's exactly right. There's not much to add to that other than subscribe now. Come on, be number 300,000.
And do I get a cake?
I think number 300,000 gets a cake.
Well, how are we going to know exactly? Everybody subscribes 72 times. Sooner or later, it's like hitting the lottery. But anyway, yes, almost 300,000. They said it couldn't be done. Who said that?
They did.
Well, they were wrong, weren't they?